Yeah, let's move into. We'll come back. I want to come back. We're going to revisit that question when we get into your time with Bigelow at Skinwalker Ranch. But I would like to move into some of the since we're let's move into some of the paranormal stuff. You've been to over a hundred. You've been to over 100 countries.
Yeah.
Studying this stuff, and so I know you had a lot of you had a lot of time visiting shamans throughout the world. What sparked your interest in shamans?
Well, again, this is stuff that's sort of evolved, and of course, the history of shamans. One of the big things, of course, is ayahuasca. My wife is sort of a devotee there and have been at a lot of ceremonies in different places. And yeah, I think she's the one who really, from the shamanic and studying from a religious aspect, has kind of driven it. And in fact, we're getting ready to go to the UK to Arthur Findlay College to teach transmediumship in a few weeks.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting. We'll get into that too. But
okay, but the medium again is, of course, ayahuasca and what I've seen there. If you, how much you want to discuss that, but let me jump to where I think you'd want to go, and that is where you see physical kinds of things. And people ask me, what's the most unusual circumstance? And that's probably in West Africa, studying voodoo. And trust me, voodoo's real. And voodoo is not just a religion there. It's an entire way of life. And the things we saw with the shamans just defy the laws of thermodynamics. They would stand on the fire, eat the fire, sit in the fire, and come away unscathed. And I am videotaped a lot closer than we are. So it's hot, so there's no doubt about, heat or radiation off of it. I've got videos, there's one in particular where this head shaman is there and he puts the thing on his tongue and his face disappears in there. Now, critical issue, he's got long chin whiskers, don't singe. Now, the other aspect was they brought out two kids that were about 10 years old, and he's going to pass the power to them, and he goes like this, and touches them. And they're able, no, he did say they're not fully initiated yet, but they're still handling fire in ways that would burn us. By the way, back, and you want to circle back, and Tony Robbins, one of the things that we did with him was firewalking. This is back in the INSCOM days. So see, all of these things keep getting kind of integrated in ways that are hard to understand, but we did firewalking. And
what was your goal? What was your goal with exploring shamanism throughout the world? Was it just curiosity?
As in past tense.
Well, is it curiosity?
Yeah. God, I wish I knew. I mean, these things just keep evolving. And there are some things that are coming up that are proprietary that are going to be changing. It's at least on the level of Grush talking about UFOs and do we have any? But there are some big things on the horizon that, hopefully, our understanding of consciousness. I don't think you can totally understand all of this. Again, the issues of complexity come up pretty quickly.
You'd mentioned ayahuasca ceremonies.
Right.
what are some of the things that you've experienced, and why? Let me rephrase this question. What is the connection with psychedelics and the altered consciousness?
First of all, I do not think the psychopharmacology answers the basic question. As we know, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, is the supposedly psychoactive substance. Having said that, the things that I've witnessed, I have seen people take huge amounts and have no effect. I've seen them take minor amounts and have transformational effects. That's why I say the psychopharmacology, because that's based on you take X amount with X body weight or condition, we understand the result. Victoria, she will say that the goddess or the mother ayahuasca calls, that it's literally a calling. And I've seen it under a number of circumstances. We did a lot in Peru and near Iquitos. Have been in Ecuador and again in Santo Daime, which is a rapidly evolving religion. I was in Brazil. Having said that, I've seen other things in Umbanda and Candomblé. Many of them have similar kinds of things, some without any external stimulation. One of the strangest events, and it's one that I have a whole segment on Brazil in the book. We had attended an Umbanda ceremony, about 300 folks, and about 10 gringos. This is near Curitiba, a little city of 3 million people you never heard of in southern Brazil. There's lots of those. People don't realize how big the country is, how many of these cities are. But anyway, they called forward and said, does anybody want a healing? And Victoria always jumps out. And the head voodoo priestess is going down, a young woman, probably in her 20s, and she goes like this. And Victoria says something basically familiar with possession. We're talking about becoming possessed by another spirit. And now, this is a group that's used to seeing spirit possession take place. That's part of the religion. They don't see gringos possessed. And so Victoria's out spinning saying, you talk about stopping the show, that was it. And one of the guys comes over and says, well, I was taking pictures. I say, you're a reporter? I said, no, that's my wife. He says, she'll be okay. And does not remember anything that happened, but you're talking about total full body possession, and you do see some of these things with the psychoactive substances. So these things get intertwined, and I don't think there's direct causal links that necessarily take place, because he has had, pretty profound transformational experiences in the ayahuasca arena. I've tried it a couple times. Not a fan. I want to emphasize this will never be a recreational drug. There are side effects, politely called purging, and sometimes running at both ends. Which will kind of, you're not going to do this at a party. My, personal, definitely there were things going on, and you're seeing colors that probably don't exist. I do recommend people look at. We had met, what was the name? The ayahuasca artist, and if you walk to the paintings, they're about as close to what you might see in that state. but nothing I could say is unexplained. But I have seen, people get really, really have mystical types of experiences. And interestingly, these usually go all night, or a good bit of it, and then they stop. But the next day, a little hangover, or and our friend is Ron Wheelock, who's known as the Gringo Shaman, whom I do recommend. But he says, it is going to end. It's interesting. You see people screaming and shouting and having, it's just terrible. The next morning say, that's exactly what I needed. I do think it is an area that we need to be looking at in PTSD, by the way. One of the things. I was talking to the other Sean last night, and program you can see that Lisa Ling did one called This Is Life, where she does look at this. Ron's involved. We missed her by a day down in Iquitos. But like I said, the bottom line is psychopharmacology doesn't answer it. Their position is that there's more than the cup and the lip.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you're able to tap into a higher consciousness?
We'd have to describe higher there. They do certainly get into other sort of forms of consciousness. And my personal experience was seeing certain, and you do see it in the paintings as well, things that emerge there that seem to be kind of universal symbols that are indicative of cultures that they've never had contact with. And you go, how would, where would that come from? You could, of course, dream it up. But what's become popular, of course, now in the U.S. is microdosing, where you're doing it for some of the sessions we were in. Well, in Santo Daime, which is a all-over religious ceremony, and then they go through these songs. I think the first one was like 21 different songs, so it goes on for hours and hours. But been able to watch the folks there, and it's... they're definitely out of it in the kind of normal sense. Although, one of the things I mentioned, because I do know, like, first time I tried, you can be very much aware of the current thing. So the saying of you've lost your senses, you're going to say something, that not at all. What you have, you still have control and make it, although you are exposed to other realities, senses, as you might expect.
Where do you think these realities come from?
Where does reality come from?
These other realities that you're experiencing on psychedelics, where do they come from?
Oh, no, wait. Are we talking about psychedelics or are we talking about reality? Because psychedelics would be a kind of a tiny subset.
Well, you had mentioned people are experiencing.
What are they experiencing?
Yes.
Well, that's actually an interesting question. The short answer would be don't know. Because, are these other realities that they're now having access to? Or is this just something that's being generated in the mind that they know? When you answer the question about reality, remember we go back to when we say the physical arises from reality. So this is an experience that you normally have certain cognitive aspects to it, but that would be far from the saying that's the cause or the...
Downstairs, we had a short conversation about reincarnation. I'd like you to talk about reincarnation.
25 words or less. Well, what I was alluding to at the time was from near-death experiences that most of the people that I know most of the key researchers in the field, and as the past president used to answer all kinds of letters and things on it. And the bottom line is, the thing that makes the most sense from our perspective is some form of reincarnation. Now, when you get into that, I mean, this is kind of an hours and hours of speculation. One of the ones that comes up initially is, well, take a Hindu religion, can you be animal, the sacred cows and all that. I think Buddha said he was a rabbit 6 times or something like that. So, can you reincarnate in other forms? A natural one that comes up is, well, if here, what about other planets? Now, one of the things, like I said, in the ET arena, is there extraterrestrial life beyond all reasonable doubt? And you don't have to, that's pure numbers. Was it 16 septillion inhabitable planets? I mean, the number just keeps going. And even if you're a pure materialist, you would have to say just purely chemicals getting together must have happened someplace in that. And you go, well, does it happen simultaneously to our development, et cetera? But it says, yeah, there's intelligent life someplace in the universe. Now, if you extrapolate that to reincarnation, it says, well, does it have to be Earth? What form does it take? I mean, this gets into really complex, again, cognitive approaches that, if you want me to take it a step further for you,
I'd love for you to take it a step further.
That, it's not just that you say, well, I asked you the question and you didn't answer. Who were you? And I ask a lot of people, and a number of people say, well, I remember, various aspects of things as if they're not. Suppose that you actually planned life. And that, what you're playing out, and then you get into the whole free will versus predestination conundrum. And what they would say is you have free will, you chose a life form that certain events are going to happen, that you're going to be afforded a chance to make decisions. And this is all a learning experience. And yeah, you'll make some bad decisions along the way, and maybe if you come back again, you'd
make some better ones.
Make that. As they say, karma's a bitch. But I'd say the evidence is coming out pretty strong that. And by the way, I try not to get into people's religious beliefs and all that. And we get into NDEs, we go into just the pure, here's what the evidence says. So I would emphasize here, what we're talking about is highly speculative, and I recognize that. There are many people who've studied much more. And of course, there are whole religions based on by the way, it was in a tenet of the Christian religion up until 566, 533, where it was voted out in Constantinople. And some people say that this is kind of a control mechanism, because if you believe in all the stuff in reincarnation and nothing's wrong, you say, what the hell, why don't I, do lots of bad things or things that feel good or whatnot that ethically you probably shouldn't, because it's a free ride. And others will say that's not the point. And this is when you get into what's the application or meaning of this. I do doing a lot of work with mediums and have several that, the kinds of things that they're reporting highly accurately I mean, certainly indicates that this is an approach, and the reason you're doing whatever it is that you're doing is part of your evolutionary or learning process.